paper and pens right here. And, you know, if you do submit a question, just put it right next to this basket.
So is the 1 minute rebuttal optional?
Yes, it is optional.
Okay, I'd like to take my 1 minute.
Is there a rebuttal in opening statements?
No.
Oh, okay, so, all right. But I'm saying that when, that's what I'm talking about, when,
Okay.
when we get to that point.
All right.
I'm anticipating.
All right. Patricia, the first question. Do you support video recording and webcasting meetings? If so, which ones and why?
Video
Ready?
recording and webcasting at all meetings? Are you talking about GPSA meetings? What meetings are we talking about?
This is, if so, which ones and why?
Okay, so we, okay. I think that, I think open government is very important. I think that constituencies and students and constituencies need to have access to that process, that decision-making process. I think that when we're talking about transparency and accountability, that's where it starts, by engaging and opening up the discussions and the meetings to the public. I think that as long as everyone has that opportunity, they may not have the opportunity to physically attend the meetings, but as long as they're afforded the opportunity to view the meetings, I think that that is access to government at all levels. I think that it is important because we're talking about bridging the divides that exist already in students, amongst students, and one way to do that is to bridge those divides, and one way to do that is through the webcasting and the videoing. And I think all GPSA meetings should be open. I think that all decision-making committees and meetings should be open, and I think that they should be videoed and webcasted. I think that that includes the budgetary process, that includes the SFRB, that includes all of the committees and meetings that we have access to, that we're able to video. Because I think that information is powerful, and the more information that gets out there, the more we arm our student body to be able to come together and build the coalitions and articulate what the needs are in their particular student bodies and their constituencies. The more information we provide in that process, the process is very important. So it's got to be an open process, and I thoroughly support, and I support it throughout.
All right, thank you, Patricia. Katie, are you ready?
I'm not sure how many of you are aware of what happened this past year in the Student Fee Review Board process, but I'd like to tell you what happened and speak a little bit about what my intended leadership style will be and how that relates to openness and accountability in government. I absolutely agree with Patricia that GPSA meetings ought to be webcast. What happened in the Student Fee Review Board this year is during one of our hearings when the groups that applied for funding came before the board, a video camera was brought in by the GPSA to record the proceedings. And under New Mexico law, Open Meetings Act, any public meeting where decisions about how public dollars are being spent should be able to be video recorded. You can't kick a video camera out. However, the undergraduates on the board decided that it was inappropriate to video record the Student Fee Review Board meetings and actually brought the hearings to a close, and we had to delay for several weeks the decision about these student fees. This was a difficult situation. I think that there should have been more communication between graduates and undergraduates about whether or not a video camera should have been allowed in this meeting prior to, deciding in the midst of our discussions what to do with the video camera. But I think that graduate students were correct in insisting that those meetings be video recorded, because we have to make sure that the people who make decisions about student money are held accountable, and that students from all over campus, no matter what they're doing, if they're busy picking up their child from UNM Children's Campus, if they're busy with their second job, if they're busy with a late night term paper, whatever they're doing, they ought to be able to still engage with their student government. And so I absolutely believe in video recording all GPSA meetings, including council meetings, including student fee review board meetings. And I think that if we begin doing this, this is a model that the administration and the ASUNM may be able to follow. We will be able to say, we video record our meetings, we're accountable to the people whose money we are making decisions about. Are you as well? Where are your video recordings? And I think that we can bring the New Mexico Open Meetings Act to meetings like the Cost Containment Committee. I served on the Cost Containment Committee this year, and those doors were closed, those meetings were not open to the public, and we made critical decisions about how money is spent at this university, and it made me extremely uncomfortable. It was actually the first thing that I said as I was entering into that group. I said, why are these meetings closed to the public? This is unacceptable. Unfortunately, there's no video to prove that I said that. But I did. So I absolutely stand for openness and accountability in government. It's a fundamental principle of mine, and I intend to make sure that GPSA meetings are video recorded and webcast as well.
All right, thank you, Katie. Joseph, whenever you're ready.
I think that's a very good question, and I'm absolutely for openness in government, but I think that there's a need to look at the bigger picture when you're addressing questions, especially that bring controversy. And one of these, is specifically with video recording, I think there's three things that you need to look at. Necessity, the demand, and also the costs for it. The necessity for all meetings to be recorded is something that should be asked. If there's a necessity, obviously, the meeting should be open and transparent as much as possible, and if that involves video recording or audio recording, then I think both of those or one of those should be implemented. I think the demand is something that also should be looked at, and that's from a bigger picture. Is it a demand by one person, or is it a demand by a larger group of people? If the student body is asking for visibility, then absolutely they should receive it. But if something is asked to be video recorded on the personal agenda of a single person who wants to use that video, I think that's a different question. I'm going to address that more specifically in a second. And I think finally, the cost needs to be looked at, because first off, video equipment by itself is expensive, and sometimes you won't have volunteers do this. Are you going to pay someone? This is relating directly to the question of the SFRB video recordings, and more specifically, I'd like to reiterate that the council, the GPSA council, the voice of the graduate and professional students, voted against spending money on video recording these. I was actually a firm advocate in not spending money because it was $2,500 of graduate funding that was being requested to video record these meetings. And what had the videos been used in the previous year when the council had passed this amount of money? No one had seen them. They had sat on a personal computer and they were not available. They were not available in any public format. And that is not fair. That's not fiscal responsibility, and there is no demand by a larger organization or a larger body of people to demand that. And I think that's important to focus on. And that's just a bigger question of GPSA is making sure that the things that we focus on are not, and I do want to reiterate that I said that I don't have an agenda, but I meant that I don't have a one-item agenda. This isn't something that I'm doing for one personal goal of mine. I do have an agenda and I have specific goals, and one of them is fiscal responsibility, and I think GPSA needs to be more accountable to the student body and how they spend their funding and if it's appropriate. If there's a need for it, then those funds can be spent, but if the demand is not there by the student body, then these GPSA funds are not being spent properly.
All right, thank you, Joseph. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I'm going to disagree with Joseph. I think that the default position has to be open government and a transparent process. You know, we're all concerned about fiscal responsibility. Budgets are tight, and Lord knows that $2,500 could do a lot of help to an individual grad student who would receive it as research funding. But from my perspective, spending that money on purchasing video equipment is a reasonable and important investment, and I'll say it. I think that the fact that in the past we haven't done as good of a job as making sure that that information is transferred to a platform that can be accessed is something we need to work on. But at the end of the day, I would join Katie and Patricia in just standing firm and saying that as many meetings as possible should be video tape, should be webcast, or if that's not practicable, audio tape should be taken, and that we should have that on the GPSA website. You know, Katie brought up a good point yesterday. It really is about leadership, and it's about leading by example. If we can go to the regions and demonstrate that we conduct our business in our own home in this open and transparent way without any fear, you know, about talking, you know, frankly with our constituents and without being afraid of our constituents and giving them the power of information to know what we're doing, I think that that's a worthwhile investment. You know, the law is the law. You know, and I think that it's time that this university as a whole starts complying with the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. As a state institution, we're required by law to comply with that state statute. And I think that if we lead by example here, we can start seeing an improvement at the macro university level as well.
All right, thank you, Jacob. Anybody would like to do a rebuttal? All right, we'll go in order. Patricia first, then Katie. You have
Yes,
1 minute. And you too, Joseph? All right, so it'll be Patricia, Katie, then Joseph. And you each have 1 minute. When you're ready.
We've been struggling with the issue of why it is that we don't fill these rooms up. We've been struggling with the issue of why it is that 600 GPSA students voted 3 years ago. That translated to 400 the following year and 300 last year. A little over 300 voted for the GPSA president. That's ridiculous. We have a student body population of over 6,000 potential GPSA members, and we have less than 400 that voted in the presidential election. We've been grappling with that. This is one of the best ways to be able to engage, providing access, equity, and opportunity. And how we do that is we have an institution that provides technical services to us. Why not coalesce? Why not collaborate? Why not share the expense? This is about including everyone at the table to talk about how we can best come up with the solutions to be able to provide webcasting.
Thank you. Katie?
So I wanted to address some of Joseph's points with regard to fiscal responsibility, because I am committed to keeping costs low, but we have to ask ourselves, how can we best serve students? Apparently this camera, which is recording now, cost us $2,500. That is going to be hopefully a piece of equipment, if we treat it well, that will last for years. And this year, it recorded Student Fee Review Board meetings that decided $11 million in student activity fees. You tell me whether you think that $2,500, even just this year, was a good investment in terms of making sure that our leaders felt responsible to the people on the other end of that video camera. I think that the first time that Student Fee Review Board hearings were recorded was a few years back when SFRB was held in Mesa Vista's foyer in the ethnic centers. And I think that the decisions that were made that year were qualitatively different because there was a camera in the room and because the SFRB meetings were held in that space. And so we are talking about, if we have a camera in the room, people who traditionally don't have access to finances will.
Thank you, Katie. Joseph?
First off, I'd like to clarify the $2,500. It was specifically asked to pay for a professional videographer. The council did fund the camera and the equipment because it's something that's going to be used in the future with GPSA. In the past, they paid $2,500 for a professional videographer to record these meetings, and they were not shown to anyone. That is not the proper use of fees. And to clarify a couple things, first off, the University Legal Counsel, this is a recommendation board, so GPSA, they were not violating the Open Meetings Act. Additionally, if you would look, all of the meetings are recorded in minutes, and they are also audio recorded, and those are all available, and I believe the minutes are available within 8 days of the meeting. So people that want to see these, it is open and transparent, and I mean, more could be done, but the demand simply is not there to record them. I looked online; they are online, and you know how many views that they had before I looked at them? 1, and the video had been up for several weeks. So that's a good indicator that there's not a demand to spend this money.
Thank you. And you said you want to rebuttal?
Yes. On that point, Joseph, I'm aware of the legal opinion you're citing by the University Council, and it's incorrect. The State Open Meetings Act does not make a distinction between recommendation boards or any other board. If it's a board of an institution, they have to comply with the act. And I disagree with the finding of the University Legal Council. I stand firm in that however we can make this process open and transparent, we should do it. And I think that we had only one view on that video, says that we need to do a better job of letting people know we're providing the resource.